How a teenager accidentally exposed 23 hidden U-boats in World War II. April 23, 1943. By that point in the war, the North Atlantic had become one of the deadliest places on Earth. Wrecked ships lay beneath its freezing waters, and thousands of sailors had vanished without graves. 17-year-old Tommy Clark understood that reality in a deeply personal way. Just 3 months earlier, his older brother's ship had been struck by a German torpedo and sunk in under 4 minutes. Nearly 300 men were lost. No survivors. No bodies. Just silence. Now Tommy sat far from the ocean, underground in London, inside the British Navy's submarine tracking room. The space was cramped, dimly lit, and always tense. Maps covered the walls and tables, huge charts of the Atlantic Ocean layered with pins, lines, and handwritten notes. Every mark represented a suspected German U-boat location. Each one meant danger for Allied convoys carrying food, fuel, and weapons to Britain. Tommy leaned forward at his desk, exhausted. He had been on duty for 14 straight hours, updating positions as intelligence reports came in from aircraft, ships, and radio intercepts. His eyes burned. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from sheer fatigue. The cup of coffee beside him was the only thing keeping him awake. As he reached for it, the unthinkable happened. The cup tipped. Hot coffee spilled across the central operational map, the most important chart in the room. Dark liquid spread over the North Atlantic, soaking the paper. Tommy froze. His heart dropped into his stomach. That map guided naval operations across thousands of miles. Ruining it could end his job, or worse. Panicking, he grabbed a cloth and began blotting the spill, trying desperately to limit the damage. His thoughts raced. He imagined court-martials, accusations, the shame of failing when the war demanded perfection. Then something strange caught his attention. As the paper absorbed the coffee, faint markings began to appear. They hadn't been visible before. Thin lines. Numbers. Precise coordinates. Tommy leaned closer. What he was seeing made no sense. Beneath the surface of the map were dozens of impressions, 23 sets of exact latitude and longitude, scattered across the Atlantic. Next to each was a small notation written in what looked like German shorthand. His breathing slowed. If he was right, this wasn't just a ruined map. It was something far more dangerous, and far more important. And here's where the story gets even crazier. If you're enjoying this kind of unbelievable World War II history, make sure you subscribe to WW2 Impact, because stories like this come straight from the most unexpected corners of the war. And trust me, this is only the beginning. What Tommy had uncovered by pure accident was evidence of a German intelligence operation that had been hiding in plain sight for 8 months. Someone inside the submarine tracking room was feeding information directly to the enemy. The tracking room itself was nothing like the sleek intelligence centers shown in movies. It was a converted basement with poor lighting, stale air, and constant noise. Most of the staff were women and teenagers. Nearly every able-bodied man was already fighting overseas. Tommy had joined just 3 weeks after his 17th birthday. He lied about his age. The Navy didn't push too hard. They needed people who could read maps, follow instructions, and stay alert during long shifts. His job was repetitive but critical. Every new intelligence report meant adjusting markers, updating routes, and tracking enemy movement. These maps were the nervous system of Britain's anti-submarine campaign. And someone had been using them as a secret notepad. British counterintelligence later realized the method was brilliantly simple. The mole had used a technique known as indented writing. By pressing firmly with a pencil on paper laid over the operational map, he left impressions that were invisible under normal conditions. No ink. No marks. Nothing detectable during routine inspections. But heat and moisture changed everything. The spilled coffee had soaked into the paper at just the right angle, revealing impressions that even trained intelligence officers had missed for months. It was flawless tradecraft, until exhaustion and bad coffee ruined it. Tommy didn't immediately report what he'd found. Fear held him back. He worried that he'd be blamed for the breach, or worse, suspected of being the traitor himself. For nearly 20 minutes, he stared at the coordinates, weighing his options. Finally, shaking, he approached his supervisor. Lieutenant Sarah Morrison took one look at the map and turned pale. Within 15 minutes, the room was sealed. Counterintelligence officers flooded in, escorting staff out and photographing every inch of the stain chart. The coordinates were checked immediately. Within 4 hours, reconnaissance flights and radar stations confirmed the truth. All 23 positions were accurate. Recently updated. Together, they represented nearly a quarter of Germany's Atlantic U-boat fleet. It was the most complete snapshot of enemy submarine deployment the British had ever seen. But the discovery came with a problem. If the Royal Navy attacked all 23 submarines at once, German command would know instantly that their intelligence network had been compromised. Codes would change. Procedures would be rewritten. The advantage would vanish overnight. British leadership needed subtlety. What followed became a textbook example of strategic deception. The mole was identified, but not arrested. A known enemy agent, carefully monitored, was more useful than a silent prisoner. False information was fed back through him. Convoys were quietly rerouted under the excuse of weather. Allied ships, accidentally, encountered U-boats in places they weren't supposed to be. To German commanders, it looked like bad luck. Over the next 6 weeks, 17 of the 23 submarines were sunk or heavily damaged. German naval headquarters believed the Allies had simply improved their tactics. The numbers tell the impact. In April 1943, German U-boats sank 95 Allied ships, more than 500,000 tons of supplies. In May, that number dropped to 50. By June, it fell to just 34. The Germans were confused. Their codes were secure. Their submarines were advanced. Their crews were experienced. They never suspected that a spilled cup of coffee in a London basement had exposed everything. Tommy Clark received no medal. No public recognition. The entire incident remained classified for 3 decades. He returned to his duties, now working closely with intelligence officers who began to appreciate the sharp observations of the young staff who lived with the maps every day. Tommy noticed patterns others missed. Subtle movements. Timing irregularities in radio traffic. Signs that certain signals were decoys. The mole was finally arrested in August 1943, not because the British wanted to stop him, but because German intelligence feared he'd been compromised and planned to extract him. His name was David Spencer, a 34-year-old analyst recruited before the war. During interrogation, he admitted the indented writing technique was something he learned as a child, secretly marking books in libraries. He never knew that coffee had undone him. The intelligence gained from those 23 positions went far beyond the submarines themselves. It revealed German communication habits, strategic thinking, and operational patterns that helped the Allies predict enemy movements for months. Admiral Karl Donitz later wrote that May 1943 marked the moment Germany lost the Battle of the Atlantic. He blamed technology and Allied production, never realizing the true cause. Tommy survived the war and became a schoolteacher in Manchester. Bound by the Official Secrets Act, he told no one. When records were finally declassified in 1973, he was 53 years old. When reporters asked him about that day, he joked that British military coffee was terrible, barely drinkable, which made it ironic that it helped change the war. The teenager who thought he'd destroyed his career had actually helped save thousands of lives and cripple one of Germany's most dangerous weapons. Sometimes history doesn't turn on generals or machines, but on exhaustion, chance, and a shaky hand reaching for a cup of coffee at exactly the wrong moment, which turned out to be exactly the right one. Thanks for watching WW2 Impact. If stories like this fascinate you, make sure you're subscribed, because we upload powerful World War II stories regularly that reveal the hidden moments behind history's biggest events. Turn on notifications, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the smallest accidents leave the biggest marks on history.